ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host, Owen, and I am joined once again by Alice.
Hello, hello.
Hey, and Dan.
Hello there.
Very good. Okay. Now, tonight for episode 3, we're going to be talking about lockdown and how people have been using technology in lockdown, particularly my two guests. In that regard, I guess we'll start with you, Dan. Your situation probably mirrors mine quite a bit, because while I've been learning online for university, you've been teaching your kids through online measures.
I have indeed, and I've been pulling whatever hair I've got left on my bald head of mine, trying to get it to get it to work. Yeah. So.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's been a different experience. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I've never really had this sort of experience of being locked in and self-taught. I mean, being a parent is quite difficult enough as it is, because I mean, you're still trying to lead your children in the right direction, and
Absolutely.
Things to do and do not do at school. Building on their like arithmetics, their handwriting, etc. But then being forced to be staying in home indoors, and the only sort of time you're allowed to be outdoors is obviously if you're a key worker or you're going for exercise, general exercise, as easy as that. The problem that I had as well was the self-learning. Now, most schools were equipped with like laptops that were available for students per household, and that kind of worked out a lot. And the government kind of introduced a law, not a law, but they introduced something they were going to do for the rest of the country. Now, the money for this disappeared somewhere, and a lot of schools were like, well, we still need money for the students for the laptops so they can actually keep going with the online learning.
Yeah.
A lot of people were trying it on smartphones. I tried it on my iPhone and had no luck whatsoever. It's like the connections were that poor. You connect to the classroom and then you'd automatically get kicked out because there was too many kids trying to get on the line all at once.
I'd be looking at
Teachers' audio was awful. Oh, it was the app. They kept saying, "Oh, use the app. It's great." No, it's not. It's crap. Don't use it. So in the end, I had to use my PC in the end, and I said to the lads, I said, "Right, tell you what, let me get my laptop, and I'll log in, do that." When I said we're gonna kick the app to touch, we use a laptop. Logged on Google Classroom, no problem.
Yeah.
The only thing that I found was really annoying with the school. I mean, this not the actual school's fault itself. It's like the curriculum, whatever that word is, I can never pronounce it. And they kind of give you just, which is quite sad, they just give you YouTube videos, and it's all YouTube videos about like mathematics, handwriting tests, spelling tests, loads of other bits and bobs, but it's just all videos. Now, kids of this sort of age, they've got technology all around them. They've got they've even got some families have given their kids iPhones, AirPods, PlayStation, Xbox, everything, all of that sort of age. And I mean, obviously, I know Alice very, very well personally. So, I mean, when we were kids, we just about had one sort of game console. So having technology this sort of time, if your family was able to afford such a thing. But being in lockdown was very, very stressful, because especially when you had exercise books to kind of work from. Some of them are very, very straightforward, especially my youngest. He was very straightforward. It was kind of like very basic maths and what they call creative story math. So it wasn't basic like 2 + 2 is 4. It was kind of like Johnny has 4 apples, goes to the store and buys 6 more. How much has he left? That's it. Yeah, maths with situations. So you kind of have to use a little bit more of your brain power to kind of figure out the questions.
Right.
So would they show you the videos and then you'd have to do the worksheets alongside that? Did you ever have like live classrooms where you could see teachers on these Zoom classes, or your boys are too young for that kind of class?
So
we had that. No, but my youngest thought it'd be great fun to start drawing stupid stuff on the whiteboard and then show it up to the camera when the teacher's like, can you sit down and pay attention? So you can obviously guess, listening to this podcast, you'll understand what my little boy was doing. But I'll leave that to your imagination. My eldest, on the other hand, he went through YouTube videos, books. It was very straightforward. It was very easy. We had no problems. I think the younger generation of school kids found it very hard because of their attention span. Now, my eldest, he can sit in front of a teacher and have them waffle on about whatever, and he's no problem. He doesn't fidget, whatever, no problem. The younger kids, unfortunately, they've got a very, very small attention span. So trying to sit them in front of a computer to say, right, you've got to listen to your teacher, mate, and you've got to do this, this, and this. And they're like, no, I want to go play Roblox. And it's like,
so
well, that's not what it's about.
you weren't able to leave them, certainly not your youngest, at any point then. So you've got remote learning. So you then had to sit there throughout the whole day of classes with both kids.
And it was very, very boring. I mean, no, some of the teachers really did make it a little bit more exciting. They were kind of like, they were having flashcards in the cameras, so they were really kind of getting their class involved. So I'm guessing they were trying to make it as classroom friendly as possible.
That engagement thing, certainly with me, obviously I am only just still a student. What I find is doing lessons from home, I'm sat at my desk in my room. This is my kind of personal, comfortable space. I get very easily distracted here. I mean, I'm an arm's reach away from my Xbox and all that sort of thing, and I find it hard to separate the classroom, because where I was last year, I was going into university, I was in lecture theatres, I was in the room, I was being watched by a lecturer, by a teacher, and certainly back at school where your kids are now, Dan, there was always a teacher there kind of keeping you sort of on track. I feel like it's got to be really difficult the setting is everything, I think. That's why we have
that's very true.
Yeah.
I think the only problem I had to do was every time we went to bed, I went to sleep, obviously put the kids to bed, I put the Switch back in the dock, I put the PlayStation back in the drawer, and the TV I'd take off Netflix and I put it back to normal TV. When the class was about to start, I had to hide everything because I was like, I don't want the boys to I even had to turn my phone on silent or do not disturb, because there'll be times where someone would blip on me like, yeah, I'll get distracted. And then as soon as my head's turned, my youngest especially, he's like, haha, it's drawing time. And it's like, no, mate, you should be doing your classroom.
Yeah.
The amount of parents really did struggle. And I think halfway through the lockdown, they were like, well, it's not getting marked, so it's not part of the school's curriculum to carry on. So they were just doing this work to keep the kids active and like carrying on so they don't forget anything, which was fair enough, because some kids, in some families, there were like mums and dads that were key workers like myself, but some of them were paramedics, policemen, firemen, etc. They were all in the services. People like me that are in supermarket working 10 hours a day, it's very difficult because when you come home from a night shift, you've then got the time to get to sleep. I always used to say to my partner, you know, I'm going to do this and this, and I'll help you with the classes. As soon as your class is done, can you go, you know, take the boys for a walk so I can get my head down for my next shift? And, you know, the first couple of weeks, you know, 2 or 3 weeks was fine. And it's only until the government were like, yeah, we're going to go into another lockdown. I was like, brilliant. So that really annoyed me a lot.
I did really resent people who were sort of like, oh, yay, we get to have some time off. Because it was like, no, because I know parents who are having to teach their kids. I know people that are trying to find new work. I know key workers like you, DJ, who your kids were still at home because it wasn't part of the services. So your kids were still, so you're still having to work and actually pick up even more hours. So yeah, I did resent a few people that were sort of treating it as a holiday. Sorry to anyone listening who had the luxury of being furloughed, and you know.
I think the only thing that I did feel sorry for a lot with this COVID technology, as well as, was a lot of people that work from home. They actually got a lot more work done because they said sitting at the office, there were people to talk to. There was stuff that they could muck about with their phones, and they could really just muck about and not get anything work done. And there's a guy that I used to talk to many years ago. I was talking to a couple of weeks back, and he said to me, I was at home doing my work, and he said he went through so many files, he even had to email his boss to say, can you give me more work, because I've done it all. And even then he was like, I don't know what to give you, because if you've done all the files and emails that I've sent you to do work that should have lasted 3 weeks and you've done it in 2 days, it's like, I don't know what else to do. So I'll still have to pay you because you're on my wherever it was, he was on your contract, so he was still getting paid even if he was at home doing nothing.
I suppose that's a perfect segue then to Alice. How's it been for you? Because obviously you work on a lot of different things, and you've had to do a lot of those different things from home where normally you would be there in person. How's that been?
Yeah, as a creative artist, I lost everything. I got put on hold from my radio job, and they just basically said, we don't know what's going to happen, but you can't come in because the studio space was too small. Other work that I had where I was touring around schools and doing productions, that immediately had to stop. So any filming that I had lined up, we just finished a film about a week before everything locked down. So that, thank goodness, went ahead. But obviously I've just had this whole time not knowing what's going to happen with my entire career that I worked so hard for. What I've been really lucky with is that the theatre company that I worked with, because we go into schools and we do productions on mental health, internet safety, anti-gang crime, our director, Sharon Williams, has been absolutely incredible and really, really changed things up and reached out to schools and said, right, we are a company, we can do stuff from home, we want to record things for you, what do you need? And we've had so many teachers come back to us and students saying, this is what we need, because drama obviously is quite a physical subject, and that basically got scrapped, because how on earth are they supposed to do it during a lockdown? So then teachers were asking for filmed copies of our productions that they could analyze and break down, and we started to do a lot of behind the scenes actors chats about productions, about performances. We even created our own short films during lockdown.
There's been a few of those, where people have, like, you know, it became quite a thing, certainly late last year, where people, obviously they work very quickly to get short films out, and they were, this film was filmed entirely in lockdown, and that became quite a staple, I feel.
Yeah, because even if not huge amounts of money were coming in, at least it was keeping us doing something, and it's something to show people once this is all over, to say, look what we did during the lockdown. And the stuff we were doing, I was filming stuff on my phone and frantically contacting the editor that we had, going, I don't really know what I'm doing, you know, I'm an actor, I don't really, this camera angle, is that okay, is this lighting, is this okay? And wander around my flat going, do you want this background, do you want this background? You know, what do you want? So we really had to think on our feet. And what was amazing was what we had to create for the schools and what they needed. So it's really, really interesting to hear what DJ was saying about what his kids were seeing. We were probably aiming more for secondary school, what we were creating, but it's still really interesting to see how then teachers were having to use it. So we basically tried to do as much as possible so teachers could just let the videos roll and ask people questions, because at the beginning we thought everything was completely online, but then we realized there were some kids physically in the classroom with people, some kids online, some kids on a screen where they could have the camera, some kids weren't allowed to have their cameras on, some kids, they weren't allowed to have their mics on. So you then had to really rethink everything to try and create content for schools and for students and for teachers that was actually going to suit absolutely everyone. And that's just that, let alone me trying to work from home, because a lot of work that I did creatively was from home anyway. So I was quite used to being at home and working in my home space. But yeah, it was just doing more of it, and a lot of it was sort of, you know, as I say, moving around the flat, trying to film things and clear stuff out, and trying to get spaces ready for it, and audio, did quite a bit of audio work, which was great, corporate, and some people were writing audio dramas that I got paid to do, which was lovely. And you know, I'm going to say it was a luxury. I was very lucky, and I know that, and I really, really appreciate it, and all of the opportunities that I was given as well. So I remotely produced a few films from home as well, helping people and things like that. So yeah, I was very, very lucky, and it was really interesting to be able to mix it up and go from theatre to film and vice versa, and trying to do online content, which for a lot of people like myself, it was totally brand new.
I suppose I'm the other end of that spectrum, because I am a film and television student in my final year. Now, the first 2 years were a lot about kind of the theory of film and television, kind of analysing past work and exploring how past work can be used in the present, or analysing the state of the media now. Whereas the final year, the one that we were thrown into lockdown for, is all almost completely practical. You know, that's what this podcast is about. I was hoping to be filming something instead of doing a podcast.
Have you not been able to do any filming at all?
No, because the equipment that we get comes from the university. It's very state-of-the-art equipment. It's all expensive, nice, fancy stuff. But we weren't allowed in to get it because lockdown. The
Oh my
university was
God.
closed in its entirety, not allowed to open. Obviously, we're handing over
Yeah.
kit and we're taking kit out, taking it home for a week, and all sorts of, anybody could track COVID back with it, that sort of thing. And now, for a while, they were trying to open stuff up and get it out, but the unsurety, the unsurety doesn't sound right. The uncertainty, sorry, there we go. Uncertainty of what was going on meant that I had to plan for the worst, essentially, and had to prepare this, which I'm very happy with. It's been very successful so far. The last two episodes have been fantastic. This one, just as good. But it's a case of I wish it had happened a year ago, 2 years ago,
Yes.
because a lot of what I did was 3,000-4,000 word essays, was analytical pieces that were quite, academically dry, stuff that you can do from home, stuff that you need bare bones access to a library to get references for. And I haven't had any of that this year, so I've had to do all of the stuff that I intended to do as practical work, kind of at my desk, and it's a bit of a pain.
I mean, it's really
Now,
it's pushed people to the limits, and it's made you think outside the box at least. So perhaps you never would
absolutely,
have thought of doing a podcast, which is great. And now you've got some fantastic content because you've done a brilliant job. But I really do feel for you because you finish your year. Is it 3-year course or 4-year course or 3-year?
3-year. Yeah, I finished
This
this
is it.
year. This is
You're
it.
done.
Yeah, this is my final project. Yeah,
Ah,
absolutely. And I suppose on the lighter side, this has given me experience in audio editing. Now, I'd focused a lot on visual editing over the last
yes.
2.5 years. So that was one of my justifications for doing this, was that, I get audio editing, and kind of just podcast, which can then sort of translate into radio work experience. Because it's very much focused on it, making something out of less. There's no visuals to support you. You have to do everything. You drag things out of your guests, drag things out of your voice. It's that sort of pulling it out there, yourself, using your imagination, using other skills. So that's been a stretch, a good way to stretch my brain and do new things. But I'd much rather been filming something.
Yeah, I mean,
As nice as
learning.
this is,
Yeah.
I'd have rather have some sort of documentary on a subject that interested me,
Yeah.
or something else, but I just haven't been able to.
You will get a chance to do
Um,
it. You absolutely, the world will
yeah,
let you have that
I know.
opportunity. But you're quite right. You've now got post-production skills, which, people will snap you up if you
Yeah,
have post-production skills or anything like that. Or now it proves you can do things remotely like this. It has
well, that's just
it
it.
has added a
That
few more strings to your bow, which
that's
you wouldn't really have thought of before. Yeah.
that was a big thing, because I mean, one of our modules is about kind of moving on after university, is about getting new jobs, and one thing that virtually every lecturer said is you will be the class of people, the year group of people that got a degree during a pandemic, and that if that goes on a CV, that'd be like gold dust,
Oh yeah,
because
totally. If that's on the CV,
you've
that would be glowing.
yeah, essentially they were saying you've overcome the odds.
Yeah.
You've, in uncertain times, obviously working on a film set, working on productions, film, TV, radio, anything, bad things happen, and they happen quickly, and they happen suddenly, and you don't know they've happened until 5 seconds after they've happened. And you have to work it out, you have to get on, you have to pull yourself up off the ground and get on with it. And that's exactly what you've done. So there's a sense of pride there, absolutely. But as I say, I'd much rather have done it 2 years ago.
That's the positive thing about online. We talked about the sort of social commentary on online and people using online content and things like that. And actually this last year has proved how positive it can be, how it can keep people connected, how it's given us new ways of getting around challenges, how we've been able to use it completely to our advantage. So I definitely now have more contacts. I've got things on my CV which I really thought March last year, I thought I'd lost everything. I really did, after all that hard work. So I'm really proud to have come out closer to the end of it with all of this. And like all of the challenges you faced, Deej, you managed to keep your boys happy and healthy and educated and sane and keeping yourself sane in the middle of all of this. Like, that is huge. If you move on to interviews and things, I did all of this whilst a global pandemic was going on, and we were able to do a lot of it by using the internet and online content, which is just amazing.
Well,
I think you've all done really bloody well. I mean, I do feel sorry for people that have been in lockdown and they've lost their jobs, their homes, their cars, everything, and it's so bad, because I do feel for them. I've got several customers at my workplace where they're like, "Oh, I've lost this, this, and this," and I'm thinking, "Christ, I'm so happy that I've still got a roof over my head, I've still got a job, I've still got my family, and everything else. It seems to be falling apart, and it's crazy."
Well, things are coming back together now, and I think the upbeat note of we're all, certainly us three at least, are okay. People are getting themselves back up there. Lockdown is nearly over. I think it's a very upbeat and honestly a very upbeat way to round things out here, I think, unless there's anything else that you want to bring up, you two.
No, just very proud and very lucky. So thank you very much.
I agree with Alice. Yeah, very lucky and very proud, definitely.
Very good. Okay, I've been your host Owen, been joined by Alice and Dan for the Deep Dive podcast. We will see you next time.